Hello everyone and welcome in to a playoff seeding update. This is on the men's side of things. So without further ado, let's dive in. So going into the games tomorrow, we have Bethel, the 1 seed at 13-2. Grace 1 game behind at 12-3. Now these two teams play tomorrow, so a lot is on the line there. Huntington is 10-5, 2 games behind Grace for the 2 seed with 3 games to go. St. Francis is 9-6 in the conference. Now for St. Francis, they are the 4 seed right now. And for St. Francis, they still have to play Grace a second time. Spring Arbor 1 game behind them. Spring Arbor is the 5 seed at 8-7. Indiana Wesleyan the 6 seed at 7-8. Taylor the 7 seed at 6-9. And Mount Vernon and Marion tied for that last playoff spot at 5-10. And then, of course, obviously we know Goshen is eliminated from the playoff race. They are 0-15 in the Crossroads League and have lost 11 straight games. So, without further ado, let's break down the playoff race. And we start first. And I'm going to start top to bottom I'm going to start bottom to top because it gets a little bit more complicated as you go farther up the list. So starting bottom to top. Now, starting with Marion, of course, for Marion, they have St. Francis, Mount Vernon, and Spring Arbor will be their last 3 games. And for them to clinch a playoff spot, they are going to have to win 2 out of 3 and have Mount Vernon lose 2 out of their last 3 for Marion to officially clinch a playoff spot. Now, for MVNU, Mount Vernon is in the same position. Mount Vernon has to win at least 2 out of their last 3 and have Marion lose, ideally, at least 1. But preferably, if you're Mount Vernon, you need Marion to lose 2 out of the last 3, and you need Mount Vernon to win 2 out of their last 3. Now, Mount Vernon, they got a tough road ahead of them because they play Indiana Wesleyan tomorrow. Then they're at Marion on Wednesday night, and then they host number 6 Grace at home next Saturday. So they still have to play some extremely, extremely tough teams. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, one thing going Mount Vernon's way is if they beat Marion on Wednesday night, then they officially would hold the head-to-head on them. So obviously that could easily come down to the game next Saturday. So I'm not going to take too much time diving into Mount Vernon and Marion's chances of making the playoffs because it's still super wide open. So now going up the list for Taylor. Now Taylor, on the other hand, Taylor is 6-9 in the conference. Now for Taylor, their remaining schedule, they have Goshen. Let me make sure I give you all the acronyms. Yes. So for Taylor, they have Goshen, Huntington, and Bethel. So outside of Goshen, Taylor has to play 2 of the top 3 ranked teams, hosting Huntington Wednesday night and going to Bethel next Saturday. So for Taylor, in order for them to lock a playoff spot, they are going to need 2 out of their last 3 and have Mount Vernon and Marion also lose 2 out of their last 3, and that would lock a playoff spot for Taylor. Now going up to the Wildcats of Indiana Wesleyan. They're 7-8 in the conference. They're 1 game behind Spring Arbor for that number 5 seed. Now, remember, Spring Arbor does hold that common opponent tiebreaker over the Wildcats because of the upset win over Grace. We know Iowa got swept by Grace. So, the one thing going for Indiana Wesleyan, if they win 1 more game out of the last 3, and they have 1 loss each by Taylor, Mount Vernon, and Marion, then Indiana Wesleyan would officially clinch no worse than the number 6 seed in the Crossroads League. So obviously for Indiana Wesleyan, they really only need 1 more win, and then they obviously would need 3 losses, or they would need 1 loss by Taylor, Mount Vernon, and Marion in order for the Wildcats to lock that number 6 seed. So going up to Spring Arbor, they're 8-7 on the year. They are 1 game behind St. Francis. Now, they still have to play St. Francis a second time next Saturday. So, if for Spring Arbor to get to that number 4 seed, they are going to have to win. Really, they need to run the table and have St. Francis only win 1 out of their last 3. And then Spring Arbor would jump up to that number 4 seed, and they would need Spring Arbor to lose out. Now, one thing for Indiana Wesleyan, the Wildcats can still get up to that number 4 seed. However, they have to run the table and they need Spring Arbor to only win 1 out of their last 3, and have St. Francis to only win 1 out of their last 3. And then the Wildcats would officially be the number 4 seed. They would jump ahead of St. Francis because of the common opponent tiebreaker with the upset win over Bethel back on February 1st. And St. Francis got swept by Bethel. So there's a lot on the line there. Now going up to, I alluded to St. Francis, for them to clinch at least a home playoff game, they are going to need 2 wins. Ideally, they're going to need 2 wins and have Spring Arbor lose 2 out of their last 3, or lose 1 out of their last 3 for St. Francis to clinch that number 4 seed. Now for Huntington, I mean, St. Francis on paper can still get up to that number 3 seed. Now let me look Huntington and St. Francis. Now they did split. So now for Huntington and St. Francis, Huntington would hold the common opponent tiebreaker over the St. Francis Cougars because Huntington upset Bethel and St. Francis got swept by Bethel. So the only way St. Francis can get up to that number 3 seed is they are going to have to run the table and have Huntington only win 1 out of their last 3 in order for St. Francis to get back up to that number 3 seed. So obviously it gets wide open. It gets more complicated as you go further up the list. Now for Huntington, they can still get to the number 2 seed. Now Huntington would have to run the table and have Grace lose out in order for that to happen. Now remember, Huntington still, now for Grace still has to play Bethel a second time. So obviously I'm not exactly sure how the tiebreakers would work out if Grace and Bethel ended up splitting. So really the best case scenario for Huntington to get up to that number 2 seed is win out and have Grace lose out. Meanwhile for Bethel, if Bethel beats Grace on Saturday, they officially would be up 2 games with 2 to play. Them and Grace would have, actually if Bethel wins, if Bethel beats Grace on Saturday, Bethel would officially lock the number 1 seed and home court advantage throughout the playoffs, because if Bethel beats Grace Saturday, Bethel would officially hold the head-to-head tiebreaker as they would have swept the Lancers on the year. Bethel did beat them the first time on late free throws with a few seconds left. So obviously a lot is on the line coming up tomorrow for a lot of these teams. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all shapes out for sure. And that is your latest update on the playoff race. So I appreciate you so much for tuning into this video, and I hope it was super helpful to you. And if it was, please comment down below or like this video or subscribe to my channel. Any one of those 3 options help me out greatly. So thanks so much for watching this video. And again, I'll be recapping all the games coming up tomorrow on Monday, so you want to tune in for that. So there's going to be a lot to talk about, especially as we head into the closing stretch of these last 3 regular season games. Again, I appreciate you so much for watching this video, and have a blessed weekend.